Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Alita, and around here we're slowly transforming our builder grade home into a space that feels more like us. One thing I've learned is that home projects don't have to happen all at once. I work full time, so most of our DIY projects happen on the weekends. Sometimes that means progress is slow, and sometimes it feels like a room can take forever to finish. But even with a busy schedule, I think it's important to make space for the things that matter. For us, that's creating a home we love coming back to at the end of the day. A home that reflects our personality, our memories, and the places that inspire us. Today's project is our small guest bathroom. And honestly, this makeover pushed me outside of my comfort zone in more ways than one. So let's get started. The inspiration for this entire bathroom actually came from one of our family's favorite places. We absolutely love visiting the Oregon coast, and specifically Haystack Rock. Every time we're there, I find myself drawn to the colors, the deep blues of the ocean, the soft sandy tones, the weathered driftwood, and the peaceful coastal atmosphere. I wanted this bathroom to capture a little bit of that feeling, not in an obvious beach-themed way, but in a more subtle and elevated way. The artwork became the starting point for the design palette and helped guide every decision afterward. The first step was clearing everything out. I removed all of the builder grade accessories, including the towel bars and existing decor. It's always amazing how much bigger a room feels once everything is stripped back and you can really see the space. At this point, I was feeling pretty confident. And then we got to the mirror. Removing the builder grade mirror was easily the most challenging part of this entire project. If you've ever removed one of those large wall mounted mirrors, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I was nervous about breaking it, nervous about damaging the wall, and honestly just nervous about the whole process. Thankfully, the mirror came down safely, but it definitely left its mark behind. Once the mirror was removed, I had quite a bit of wall damage to repair. There were chunks of drywall paper missing, adhesive residue, and several spots that needed patching. This part isn't glamorous, but it's one of the most important steps. A beautiful finish always starts with good prep work. So I spent some time patching, sanding, smoothing until the wall was ready for the next phase. And while it wasn't the most exciting part of the project, it made a huge difference in the final result. Next, I headed to Lowe's to pick out trim. I spent way longer in that aisle than I probably should have. There were so many options, but I kept coming back to this fluted trim. There was something about the vertical grooves that felt coastal and nautical to me. It reminded me of a classic waterfront architecture and weathered boardwalk details. And since the whole design was inspired by Haystack Rock and the Oregon coast, it felt like the perfect choice. It added texture without being overly decorative. Once I got home, it was time to start building. I measured everything out and began installing the trim. One detail I was very intentional about was planning around the future mirror and the wall cabinet. I knew I wanted those pieces to sit flush against the wall rather than sitting awkwardly on top of the trim. So instead of running the trim continuously across the entire wall, I carefully trimmed around the spaces where the mirror and cabinet would eventually be installed. It took a little extra planning, but it created a much cleaner and more custom look in the end. And honestly, this is the stage where I started getting excited. For the first time, I could really see the vision coming together. With the paint finished, it was finally time for the fun part, installing the wall cabinet and mirror. This cabinet was one of the first purchases I made for the house, and I know I wanted it to stay in the newly designed space. It adds so much function to the room while also bringing in that beautiful natural wood tone. The fluted detailing ties everything together perfectly. The wood tones also help balance the cooler paint colors and brought warmth to the space. Once the mirror went up, the room finally felt complete. As always, the last 10% of a project takes way longer than expected. I finished everything up with caulk, touch-up paint, and all the final details. And yes, one or two baby wipes. Then it was time to decorate. I brought in artwork inspired by Haystack Rock, a few coastal-inspired accessories, and simple styling pieces that complemented the color palette. Nothing over the top, just enough to make the room feel intentional and personal. I'm so happy with how this bathroom turned out. What started as a plain builder grade guest bath now feels like a space with real personality. Feels custom and thoughtful. Most importantly, it feels like us. I love that every time I walk into this room, I'm reminded of the Oregon coast and one of our family's favorite places. And that's really what home design is all about, not creating something perfect, but creating spaces that tell your story.